Greetings, this is Dinah Monahan
and Damon Evans bringing you Pro-Life Perspectives. This program is about all things pro-life. It's sponsored by White Mountain Tees in Snowflake. White Mountain Tees provides screen printing, embroidery, banner printing, merchandise with your logo on it, and much more for the White Mountain community. Whether it's 25 t-shirts for your family reunion or 5,000 for your big event, they can do it.
And Damon, they deliver your order right to your door. From Payson to Winslow, Pinetop to Springerville, they bring it to you. Go to whitemountaintees.com. That's whitemountaintees.com. Or stop by their shop in Snowflake.
So Dinah, hello, you just got back from Ethiopia. Welcome back.
Thanks, it's good to be back. It was really an amazing trip, but boy, am I glad to be back on U.S. soil.
I bet.
Guess what? We have 3 followers of this broadcast in Ethiopia. We're international.
That is wonderful. What do they say? How do they greet you in Ethiopia?
Well,
what's the standard hello?
Well, first you grab each other's hands, right hands, and then you go cheek to cheek 3 times. One side, the other side, then back to the original. But if they really love you, you go 5 times.
5 times, and then the greeting is it salam or
yeah,
jambo
yes, salamna.
Salamna. Salamna to our new listeners in Ethiopia. Wonderful to have you. And Dinah, you've been to Ethiopia a number of times, I think.
Yes, actually, this is about my 10th time.
Oh my goodness.
So the novelty's worn off a bit, but there's a deep affection for the Ethiopian people.
I've always known that your pro-life efforts and concerns are not limited to just the United States or our culture. So tell me a little bit about your work there.
Well, my late husband, Mike, and I originally went to Ethiopia in 2010. And you know what? We didn't have any idea why we were going, which for him, the consummate planner, was weird. But after we'd been there for a few weeks, we left with the start of a maternity home. Over the years, Hope House Ethiopia, under the leadership of a lovely, gifted woman named Meseret, grew to accommodate 16 mothers and babies at a time. We also had a teacher who went into public schools to teach the children about fetal development and abortion. He reached thousands of children.
Is that still running now?
No, in 2015, we had to close it down due to issues with the government. Mike died in 2016, and he was sort of the brains behind it, so the timing was definitely providential. I did not think I would return to Ethiopia.
Well, obviously you're back at it, and when did you return to Ethiopia and why?
Well, I went back last year, 2 years ago. I have a friend named Joy who's as crazy as I am. She lives in Washington but travels to Ethiopia often. She has an orphanage that takes in abandoned babies and places them for adoption with Ethiopian families. This in itself is astounding, as adoption is not even a concept in their culture. Through her leadership, Christians are now being introduced to God's plan for adoption, and babies are being placed. They've done 113 adoptions with prospective parents lining up. But that isn't enough for my friend Joy. She has overseen the training of 37 indigenous missionaries and the establishment of 53 churches in Muslim areas. Wow. These missionaries they're former Muslims who are transformed by Jesus, receiving training, and then they go back into their tribes to share the gospel and start churches. Joy has wonderful staff on the ground in Ethiopia, but she's the mover and the shaker behind it.
I see the similarities, and I think the combination of you two could be dangerous.
Well, we do laugh about that. We think alike, and a long plane ride together is fertile ground for some crazy ideas.
I bet.
Yeah. When I did return to Ethiopia in 2021, it was because of the fruition of the plotting and planning with Joy. Most missionaries are in rural villages scattered in the countryside. They, with their families, are isolated and persecuted. We decided to hold a retreat conference for the missionaries and their wives. I returned this time for the 4th retreat. They stay in a hotel, which is unheard of, certainly for the women. At the first retreat, Many of the women had never flipped a light switch, turned on a faucet, used a toilet, or ever been served a meal. They thought the modest hotel was a castle.
Wow, I can imagine how much those retreats mean to them.
No kidding. So much that 4 couples, 3 of them carrying babies, walked 8 hours to get there.
It's amazing what they'll do to access resources that we just take for granted.
Absolutely.
And I know you're involved in pro-life there. Tell us about that.
When I returned in 2021, Meseret and I reconnected, and she introduced me to other pro-lifers, and we came up with a plan. We wanted to be there to share the truth about abortion and about the life inside the young woman as she was going into the abortion clinic. But if she had nowhere to live, we wanted to be there to help her. And I'll talk more about that in the next broadcast, but it's actually working.
I think that's an amazing impact. What is the status of abortion now in Ethiopia?
Well, abortion used to be illegal in this country. However, as Western abortion ideology laced with dollars started taking hold, things quickly changed. In 2012, Mike and I sponsored an educational conference for pastors and church leaders about abortion, and it was for about 120 people. Our goal was to start with churches to create a culture of life among Christians.
Well, that's a lot like life here in America. It has to start in the churches, and Christians have to walk out their convictions. I would imagine in Ethiopia there aren't pregnancy centers and pro-life groups, but here in America there are over 3,000 pregnancy centers where Christians can support and serve. Our churches must champion these ministries.
You're so right. Ethiopian Christians are just opening their eyes to the abortion Holocaust in their country. The most effective way for them to be involved right now is to learn about abortion and then tell others. They are a small number with modest means, but the abortion juggernaut is racing downhill with the rails greased by money from the United Nations, WHO, the United States, Europe, George Soros, and Bill Gates, just to name a few. You know, the next week, following our little conference that we had for 120, Bill and Melinda Gates were hosting a huge conference for over 5,000 attendees. You know, and when you attend a conference in Ethiopia, you know, here you have to pay to go to conferences. Yep. Oh, there, the person sponsoring has to pay for the hotel, for the food, for the traveling. But Bill and Melinda have a lot of money. Anyway, one of their stated goals was to bring abortion to every village, town, and city in Ethiopia. To do this, they wanted to train midwives to do abortion.
This is kind of a David and Goliath story, isn't it?
Man, it sure is. You know, this trip, I also found out, speaking of Goliath, that they're building the largest abortion clinic in all of Africa in Addis Ababa.
Well, Dinah, that is very sad news, and we know that abortion takes the lives of children, it harms women, and tears apart the fabric of a culture. Spiritually, it moves cultures and countries away from God and valuing life. What a battle we're in, a global battle, obviously.
Yes.
The Bible says it well in Ephesians 6:12. It says, "For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places." We can see the fingerprints of that battle plan from the enemy here and there and everywhere. Well, this is going to end our time for today. We just scratched the surface of Dinah's time in Ethiopia. Next week, we'll hear much more about her Ethiopian pro-life adventures. But until then, be safe,
be blessed,
be kind,
and love life.